Welcome back. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. Viewers, there's an operational meltdown taking place at Indigo, which is India's largest and most successful airline. It continues to send shockwaves through the civil aviation sector, and it's been driven primarily by its admitted failure to prepare for the new, more stringent pilot duty regulations adequately. The crisis has triggered mass flight cancellations and delays. It has raised serious questions about the carrier's future operational stability. But if you're wondering, like the rest of us, what really caused this overnight collapse? Well, as per the airline, the central cause of the turmoil is the full implementation of the revised flight duty time limitations, the FDTL. That's a word, that's a phrase that you'll be hearing a lot in the days to come. These are norms by the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. These rules were mandated by the Delhi High Court, and they aimed at combating a very serious problem of pilot fatigue. It's a critical safety risk. Pilots at the end of the day are human beings. This came into effect, full effect, on the 1st of November this year. The key changes that have crippled Indigo's very complex high-frequency scheduling model are essentially three. Number one, there was an increase in weekly rest. The mandatory weekly rest period for pilots has been extended from 36 consecutive hours to 48 consecutive hours. And secondly, there was a restriction on night operations. The number of permitted night landings for a pilot have been severely restricted, dropping from 6 to only 2 per roster. Secondly, the night period has been redefined. The definition of night hours has been extended, imposing additional constraints on scheduling early morning and late night flights, a time when Indigo relies heavily on its aircrafts to maximize utilization. If you're wondering why did these regulations even come into place, well, to keep us at par with international standards. Pilots and their associations have argued that current or past FDTL rules allowed for excessive work hours and poorly planned rosters. This led to burnout and ultimately risked the safety of the flyer. Airlines, especially the low-cost carriers, what do? They aim for high crew utilization, and this pushes pilots to the maximum permissible duty hours, but ultimately we are not in an era of self-flying planes yet. We have pilots who fly these planes, and those pilots are human and they need rest. That's the bottom line. The implementation, viewers, of these rules has now exposed a severe crew shortage at Indigo as well. It's India's dominant carrier. It operates the largest network. Remember that. Indigo currently operates a fleet of approximately 434 aircrafts, of which around 50 are already grounded due to separate ongoing Pratt & Whitney engine issues. The airline has the biggest pool of pilots in the country. In October, Indigo was comfortably staffed with 2,186 captains and 1,948 flying officers. That's a total of 4,134 pilots. But the new FDTL norms required Indigo to hire just more number of pilots to cover the same schedule while ensuring that there was mandatory rest. Indigo said it had only 2,357 captains in December, but data submitted by the airline to the DGCA reveals that under the new FDTL norms, the airline was expected to only have the airline had a shortage of just about 65 captains alone. That's all that there was. We've been told that it required 2,422 captains and 2,153 first officers to maintain stable operations, which indicated a deficit of just about 65 captains alone. Yes, that's the number that we're looking at. They just needed 65 captains more, and maybe this chaos wouldn't have happened. But the airline's usual crew buffer, which typically stands at around 4% for contingencies, also dropped to 0 under these new requirements. While the exact figure has not been officially stated by the airline, the massive daily cancellations and its request for a temporary waiver underscore a severe shortage of several hundred pilots. There was a clear need for several hundred additional crew members across all ranks to properly staff its network as well. In the first week of the crisis, Indigo cancelled over 1,000 flights and saw its on-time performance plummet to as low as 8.5% at some of the major airports. The DGCA has formally stated that the disruptions have arisen from the airline's misjudgment and planning gaps. Yes, and remember that. While the cancellations and compensation costs are high in total, analysts suggest that the direct impact on the airline's overall profit remains relatively contained for now. They've estimated that the net hit on the operating profit is less than 1% of the company's recent quarterly earnings. The more enduring financial impact, however, will come from the accelerated costly recruitment and training of hundreds of new pilots, as well as the erosion of its competitive edge as a reliable carrier. Indigo has now asked the DGCA for a temporary exemption from the certain night operations restrictions until the 10th of February 2026, by which time it has promised the regulator that stable operations will be fully restored. But if you're wondering that did all of this happen overnight, of course not. Indigo and other domestic carriers had been aware of the proposed revisions to the flight duty time limitations rules since as early as 2024. These rules aimed at mitigating pilot fatigue were enforced in 2 phases following directives from the Delhi High Court. Phase 1 began in July of last year, and the critical Phase 2, which included the most restrictive changes to night operations and weekly rest, came into effect on the 1st of November this year. Indigo had a preparatory window of nearly 2 years to adjust its crew strength and rostering. The core reason Indigo did not hire enough pilots and crew has been attributed by pilots associations to a prolonged and unorthodox lean manpower strategy. Yes, because Indigo has historically maintained one of the highest aircraft and crew utilization rates globally as part of its low-cost model. This means that it ran with minimal crew surplus. The Federation of Indian Pilots and other pilot bodies have publicly alleged that despite knowing the new stricter norms were imminent, they were going to be implemented, Indigo inexplicably adopted a hiring freeze and failed to ramp up training during the preparatory period. Instead, the airline has reportedly increased its winter flight schedule by approximately 6%, compounding the resource crunch further. What does this really tell us? That's the big question, right? Despite having a preparatory window of nearly 2 years for the 2-phased implementation of the new mandatory FDTL safety rules, Indigo's management, viewers, prioritized a lean, cost-optimized operational model. And the DGCA has made a very clear conclusion that disruptions have arisen primarily from Indigo's own misjudgment and planning gaps. This misjudgment is causing thousands of passengers great hardship. We've spoken to people at airports across India and they all have the same thing to say. Why aren't they being given a clear picture? Why is there no communication? What is Indigo waiting for? There is a mad scramble to book tickets on the other airlines, which have now sent the fares skyrocketing. Delhi-Mumbai one-way economy fare this Sunday for the 7th of December on other airlines is between 21,000 to 39,000 rupees. You can fly abroad for that amount. Bengaluru to Kolkata for that day is between 20,000 to 23,000. Delhi to Chennai is about rupees 21,000 one-way economy. Udaipur to Delhi ticket for Sunday, the 7th of December, is now costing between 15,000 to 26,000 on airlines other than Indigo. Udaipur Mumbai one-way is as high as 24,000 and rupees 35,000 on non-Indigo airlines. The maths is very simple, right? Because Indigo has 64% of domestic market share. Other airlines, including Air India, AI Express, SpiceJet and Akasa, account for the rest. At this point, we're all at the mercy of simple economics of demand and supply. The Director General of Civil Aviation has meanwhile withdrawn a recent rule that barred airlines from counting a pilot's scheduled leave. They've basically changed it up so that there is some temporary flexibility in pilot rostering to help stabilize operations and minimize passenger inconvenience. But Indigo, viewers, has also released an apology that promises full refunds where applicable, hotel stays, free food and snacks, lounges for the elderly. They say that they will work hard to earn back the trust of the nation. Well, Indigo, very sorry, but this is too little, too late. Meanwhile, the Minister of Civil Aviation has also held a meeting with officials asking everyone to get their house in order. Everyone else is quiet on the matter. There's no special session of parliament that has been called. No one's really saying much. Overall, it's chaotic and disappointing. We can only hope Indigo will be able to get its house in order. If you're traveling anytime soon, do check the schedule. That's better than being stranded at an airport.